This next project and presentation is an important one with regard to safety. I love that there's been kind of a theme on safety today. It also ties together our flood warning program, criteria, education and outreach, and it really hits on our mission as it relates to protecting people. It's my pleasure to introduce Jen Winters, Watershed Manager.
Thanks, Holly. On the night of June the 21st, 2023, almost 11 months ago today, an intense thunderstorm hit the eastern portion of the district about a mile south of the town of Watkins. Crystal Bucky was driving north on Watkins Road. She had spent the day in Castle Rock shopping at the outlet malls and was headed home when she drove through the storm. It was dark, it was pouring rain, and it was probably disorienting. Tragically, her car was swept off the road and into a flooding creek, and she did not survive. Her car was washed 400 yards downstream and was discovered the next morning. The following are some news clips from the incident.
We are learning today of a death related to the severe weather we saw last night. First responders in the Bennett-Watkins area of Arapahoe County were able to help some drivers stranded by high water, but unfortunately, they were not able to rescue everyone. Our Gabrielle Franklin has the very latest.
Yeah, with more severe weather on the way today, we've moved about a mile away from where this all happened, but we were able to get video of that scene earlier that we want to share with you right now.
South Metro Dive Team, with our assistance, was able to unfortunately recover an adult female victim.
One woman was found dead in a car off 6th Avenue and Watkins Road in Arapahoe County after first responders say the sheriff's office got calls about cars stranded thanks to flooding roads in the area.
Upon arrival, deputies found 3 vehicles, 2 stranded in the water and a third that was being swept away by rapid water heading under this bridge here at this intersection.
This is an interview with her daughter.
She was crying, yelling for my dad to come help and to come save her. So then the phone went out. We called 911, got 911 to meet him there. And my dad and brother spent a long time out there.
The search efforts turned into a recovery Thursday.
They didn't find her for another 12 hours. This is devastated our family. Like, I don't get to call my mom anymore. So anyways, we just don't want that to happen to anybody else.
It's really hard to watch that video and not find it totally heartbreaking, even after having seen it a few times. For me personally, Crystal's story has changed or intensified the way that I view our work. And by our, I mean everybody in this room and everything that you do and all the decisions that we make every single day and how we have a direct impact on people's lives and safety. I really like this graphic that Drew showed in his presentation this morning. I love how it shows in a quantifiable way how much of a difference that we as an industry have on people's lives and how much we've learned and grown and improved over time. But on the flip side, as Crystal's story shows us that we can and we should still do better, and we can and we should still do more, because one death is still too many deaths. As an industry, I feel like we've done an okay job at getting the message out of turn around, don't drown. But the reality is that some people haven't received this message, and even worse, some people have heard this message but still choose to drive through floodwaters anyway. We must keep repeating the messages that 6 inches of water can knock you off your feet, that 12 inches of water can float a vehicle, that 18 inches of water can make a vehicle wash away. We can never stop relaying that message. Like Holly said this morning, a person should never walk or drive into floodwater. There have been several studies on flood fatalities over the years. Ashley and Ashley found that 63% of flood fatalities are in vehicles. Another study found that 80 of 177 drowning deaths were in vehicles. And the National Weather Service found that more than 50% of flood deaths were in vehicles. All that to say that the most common way to die in a flood is to drown in a vehicle. So having said that, what more can we do to help prevent these incidents from happening? After any fatality within the district, we initiate a flood investigation report to help the local government and to help us to understand what happened. In this case, Leonard Rice and Associates went to the site. They documented high water marks, debris, erosion, and any other physical indicators of the flood. The two creeks involved in the flood were called Coyote Run and Muskrat Gulch, both of which are left-hand tributaries to Box Elder Creek. In most of the photos, you can see high water marks of the flood event where the debris has settled on the overbanks. This is a photo facing downstream towards the Watkins Road Bridge. Again, you can see debris in the overbanks. In this specific event, the bridge didn't overtop, but there's a low-lying point to the left of the bridge where the road did overtop. Muskrat Gulch is the smaller of the two tributaries. You can see that in this reach, it's not channelized, it's just an open floodplain area. Until you get closer to the crossing of the road where you can see there was a lot of erosion that day. I show you these pictures just to give you mostly a flavor for what the creeks looked like and what it looked like after the flood. The flood investigation report found that the gauge-adjusted radar rainfall was 3.51 inches in 2 hours, which equates to about a 200-year rainfall. Just a reminder that a 200-year rainfall does not mean a 200-year flood event in the creek, especially if the rain was only over part of the watershed. But what it does illustrate is that there was a very intense storm in the area that night. In this figure, you can see how Muskrat Gulch approaches Watkins Road from the west. It flows into Coyote Run, and then Coyote Run approaches Watkins Road from the east. This is significant in that the road overtops in two different directions, which could have been extra disorienting for vehicles. The road overtopped in two spots. Remember what I said earlier, that 18 inches of water can wash a vehicle off the road. Location number 1 crossed by 2 feet of water, and location 2 by 1.5 feet of water. Finally, Leonard Rice found that the flood was between a 10 and a 50-year event. So you might be thinking, well, the obvious long-term solution here is to increase the size of the bridge and the culvert at Watkins Road, and the most recent master plan would agree with that. However, it could take several years for us to actually get, or for Arapahoe County to get funding in place to upsize those structures. So in the meantime, what more can we do now at Watkins Road to make people safer? First, let's start with the human element. For every engineering project and management decision that we make, there's always the flip side of trying to predict human behavior aspect and how humans are going to react to the decisions that we make. Now, I have 2 examples of that for this location. This is actually from the news footage from that night. The guy took a video from his dash cam of him driving through the floodwaters. So, anecdotally speaking, having seen this video, having talked to people, having been out to Watkins Road myself, I think there is a level of comfort with people driving through the road and maybe somewhat accustomed to driving through the water. So that's an existing behavior that we just have to understand is there. The second example of human behavior I have for this location is that the morning after Crystal Bucky's death, Arapahoe County closed the road with some concrete barriers. Unfortunately, some guys in pickup trucks decided that they would just move those barriers themselves and drive through the floodwaters. So the point is that people are going to do stuff like this, and we can't stop humans from making personal decisions, but we can give them the best information and the best warning that we can in order for them to make good decisions for their own personal safety. The district's rain and stream gauge network doesn't cover the eastern portion of the district very well right now, and that's because this is the last part of the district to really development. But as development does move east, we need to start filling in those gaps. So we've met recently with the city of Aurora to talk about strategically placing gauges in the eastern part of their city, and also with Arapahoe County, specifically about the Watkins Road gauge. And what we decided for Watkins Road is that with the support of Arapahoe County and with the help of Water and Earth Technologies, we're going to install a flasher station similar to the one shown here along Watkins Road. And how those will work is that the station will be connected to an in-stream gauge along Coyote Run at the Watkins Road Bridge, and it will begin to flash when the depth within the creek gets to a certain level. So that'll give real-time warning to the drivers along the road that, hey, there's a danger up ahead, and also will notify Arapahoe County emergency personnel that there's a current flood risk. We currently have 4 stages set up for this station. The first is the action stage. So when water in the creek gets up to a foot in depth, the lights will begin to flash. That might not seem like a lot, but for this specific system, it does indicate that there's a danger. The next stage is called the flood stage. This is 3 feet in depth. We have a flood warning now at this point, and emergency responders are on standby. Next is the moderate stage. This is when the low chord of the bridge is actually hit by water. At this point, emergency responders are on standby and ready to close the road if needed. And then the last is the major stage. At this point, it's a 100-year flood event. The bridge is overtopping. It's an imminent danger to people, and Watkins Road is closed. So you can see that this kind of station gives you a lot of different options in terms of how you set those stages, and it's really a simple and powerful tool for flood safety. Which is why other flood control and emergency management agencies across the country are starting to implement these types of stations, because they really are low cost, easy, and pretty effective way to make our roads safer. Which begs the question, where else in the district can we use these types of stations? You know, this is the first station, but it's likely not going to be the last. So what we're trying to do at the district is that we can start to take a hard look at our data. So Bruce talked this morning about flood forecasting using COHP and SWIM modeling for master plans. John talked about our Confluence platform and all the planning and flood data and risk data that we're incorporating. Maybe we can use that data to help predict risk of overtopping and the level of danger at certain roads, and start putting a real prioritization at a district scale to where flasher stations could be best suited. What you can do is to try to help us identify locations where a particular road is overtopped frequently and where you feel like it's a dangerous situation. This is another example from last summer along First Creek and 96th Avenue in Commerce City. In this case, the driver was able to get out of his vehicle and was sitting on top of his car for a few hours before he was rescued. Obviously, this is real close to being a tragedy, and we're lucky that it wasn't. But also obvious that this could be another good location for a flasher station in the future. So all that to say, if you know of any particularly dangerous crossings, please reach out to me or Bruce or anybody else at the district, and we can start that conversation of if it would be a good fit for that location. So I'm just going to leave you with a few parting words before I hand the stage over to our next speaker. You know, I don't mean to sound too hyperbolic, but I really believe that every project that we, the people in this room, that we all build, that every study that we do, that every management decision that we make are for the people who live here in our community, like Crystal Bucky. We're fortunate enough to get to work on big, multi-million-dollar, really cool projects that in the long run are absolutely saving countless lives. But we also owe it to the Crystal Buckys in our community to invest in the small, relatively inexpensive, easy things that we could do that would also save lives, like a $60,000 flasher station along Watkins Road. Thank you.